Ready to make the next big hotel deal? Join nearly 3,000 global leaders at the 25th Annual ALIS. As the world's leading and most influential hotel investment conference, ALIS takes place January 26 through 28, 2026 at the JW Marriott Ritz-Carlton LA Live. With more than 40 powerhouse sessions and 150 industry visionaries on stage, this is where the future of hotel investment takes shape. Act now. Regular registration ends January 14th. This is your last chance to register at a discounted rate. Visit alisconference.com, that's ALIS conference.com, for more information. Hello and welcome to the CoStar News Hotels podcast. I'm Stephanie Ricca, editorial director of the hotels team at CoStar News. And 1 year later, back by popular demand, I welcome Hertelier founder and editor-in-chief Emily Goldfischer back to the podcast to talk about the travel trends and crazy travel buzzwords that we'll be talking about in 2026. Now, whether you're a loyal listener and remember our first dive into this topic last year, in which we dissected travel buzzwords like me moon and herkle-durkle, or maybe you're a new listener, this episode is a guaranteed good time. So here's what we do. We look through all those emails that we've all been getting over the last few months that promise to tell us the biggest travel trends in 2026 that we should look out for. We go through those so you don't have to, and then we apply our own expertise and judgment and critical thinking and a little bit of snark to let you know whether these trends and silly buzzwords associated with them have staying power. I am delighted to welcome Emily back to the pod. Hi, Emily. How are you?
Hello, Stephanie. I am super excited to be here.
This is the most fun one of the year, isn't it?
It is.
Now, listeners, you know Emily from her fantastic site, Hertelier, the online media platform designed to inspire women in hospitality at all stages of their lives and careers. And I will tell you, it is a must-read for anyone in the hospitality industry, whether you identify as a woman or not. Emily is a career hotelier and a journalist, so she knows everyone. She gets great interviews. I loved the interview with Barbara Muckerman in particular, by the way. And so, as such, she knows the trends of which we speak.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for reading and being a follower, and I am grateful for you. And I'm also thrilled to be here with you. And for the benefit of the new listeners, you and I connected on LinkedIn over our shared passion for travel buzzwords.
Passion.
And look at us now. I consider us frolics.
There she is throwing out our first buzzword of the day, the friends who are colleagues.
Yep. And then of course, we figured out that we had met years ago at the NYU conference when I was the head of communications for Lowe's Hotels. So there you have it, the small world of global hospitality.
Right, and you never know what you're going to connect over. So a little more explanation of what we're doing here today. So again, every year, these hospitality companies and brands put out their lists of their takes on the upcoming big trends. They forecast, right? Like any other forecasting company. They identify trends like solo travel, multi-generational travel, trends like set jetting, which has been a big one for a few years, which describes when people travel to their favorite real or faux destinations from TV shows and movies. So Emily and I look at these lists and we trade them back and forth all year. And we distill what we think the good trends and words are. And with a little humor, too, because why not, And of course, we do this as journalists. We are not paid to promote any of these trends or buzzwords, but we both travel a lot ourselves. So we bring that perspective, right? Are these trends that we might do or that our friends and family might do?
Exactly. But first, Stephanie, I think we owe it to our listeners to just quickly talk about whether the trends that we predicted in 2025, really had staying power. And I'm just back from ILTM in Cannes, which is the largest luxury travel show, drawing nearly 10,000 luxury travel buyers, hoteliers, cruise and destination executives. So I'm here bringing the latest buzz. I'm excited to compare with last year to see if what we predicted actually came true. So the
Fingers
first one,
crossed.
Fingers crossed. The first one was time travel. So that was making meaningful experiences, multi-gen trips, skip-gen trips, and trips with friends. I have to say, this one is still holding on strong, and with an update that I liked, which is side-gen trips, and that's trips with aunties and uncles and no parents.
Love it. Check. We got it.
Check. All right. Solo travel. Interestingly, the data shows that this is still a strong and growing segment of travel, particularly for women over 60. Yet, it wasn't given any airtime actually at ILTM, not that I saw. So the Me Moons, the solo travel, the Herkel-Dirkling, those were big in 2025. This year, there was way more talk about making connections. Marriott dropped a stat at ILTM that said 55% of high net worth individuals form new friendships during their trips. So this year, the luxury group at Marriott, which is opening 35 new properties, is amplifying residential offerings and social spaces designed to bring people together.
So maybe not the traveling separately, but the finding connections.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Number 3 was we had the detour destinations. So this is Second Cities, and this is still hot, primarily because people want to avoid crowds. Over tourism got a lot of bad press this year. And also, I think there's people that are trying to game peak pricing, and we're going to get to that later on.
Mm-hmm.
And number 4, we had slow travel. And if anything, this one's picked up momentum.
Womp womp.
This year, we saw the introduction of the La Dolce Vita train by Orient Express, many new train routes by Belmond, and a huge surge in luxury cruising. 60 new ships are coming online in the next decade, and lots of talk about the journey being part of the holiday, not starting when you get wherever.
I love that. I agree. I think I can pat ourselves on the back. We actually got a few right, which I owe all to you because you are a luxury maven in particular. And so I think you have your finger on the pulse. But I'm going to say we're on a roll and we might be keeping up our streak. So let's dive into our trends for this year. Now we're doing it a little bit differently. So I'm going to begin with a quick description of the trend that we chose, and then we're going to debate in real time whether this is real and true with staying power or whether it's just, kind of trendy noise. And I think you'll find that some of the trends that we hit on last year that did have staying power might be back in some iteration or another. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so first trend we're going to tackle is off-peak travel. Sounds a little familiar, right? So this one is exactly what it sounds like. It's taking the trip at a potentially less busy time to avoid crowds, right? And to take advantage maybe of some pricing. Now, the buzzword that hooked me into this trend that I'd never heard before is Twixmas, a word that I read in a press release to describe the week betwixt Christmas and New Year's and cast it as a time not to sit on your couch and eat cheese, but to travel. So, Emily, what do you think about this one? Off-peak travel, I have a feeling we're on the same page.
I agree with you. I will say this, living in London, Twixmas is actually like a normal phrase here.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I'd heard that. I'd heard Twixmas.
See, it takes a while to get from London to Cleveland.
Not in the context of travel, but like that time between Christmas and New Year's is very much of a long holiday here. So while I don't see it as a thing on its own per se, we are definitely seeing the rise of the off-peak traveler. I think Twixmas is a symptom of a bigger trend where travelers are gaming the calendar to avoid crowds and not redefining Christmas.
Mm-hmm. I love that gaming the calendar, right? Because especially as we're more connected and more able to kind of pick up and go at any time, gaming the calendar is big. And we talk to hoteliers who are actively pursuing this kind of demand, right? They want to extend shoulder seasons. Ski resorts want you there, shopping and eating and drinking, even if the snow isn't falling. So this one's good. We like it. Here to stay happening.
Yeah, I think so.
Good. Sold. Look at us. We're already getting through these. So Number 2, our next trend, the vacation. So that's vacation. It's a term that Hilton coined this year, is going to take credit for coining this year to describe, quote, our craving of travel as a medium for building closer relationships where the intention to travel is primary and the destination itself is secondary. So essentially, the journey is the destination on this one. Is that right, Emily? What do you think?
I think that is a real trend. It's the umbrella for almost every major report that we've seen circling around. At ILTM, Mark Weinstein, who's the CMO at Hilton, said their research shows that people choose vacations, 1 for purpose, 2 for place, and 3 for brand, which
Mm.
actually makes it harder for the brands and why they need to focus on building the next few engaging trends that we've identified.
It comes back to that authenticity thing, right? A buzzword that we've been talking about for years now that feels very enduring, even despite changes in overall economic, your feelings about whether you can travel at a high level or have to be taking, maybe more budget conscious trips. I feel like that idea of having an authentic reason for doing this, no matter what your price point is kind of the underpinning here.
I agree. I agree. People are really looking at like what do I want to get out of this time off?
Mm-hmm. Right,
Which I
right. So
think
why?
perfectly into our next trend.
It sure does. So we talked about the whycation. Next up, we have the skillcation. So I love how they just portmanteau all these words. You can put anything on top of cation, right? Babycation, mommycation,
Yeah.
famcation, skillcation. So skillcation, I think, is sort of an iteration of the whycation. I see it described by hotels and resorts in many different ways. Here's just one description from a resort that described their skillcation offering as immersive escapes offering curated retreats, that combine relaxation with the chance to learn or refine a skill. And in this resort's case, it was yoga, swimming, active pursuits. I think they had like learn to surf on there too. What do you think, Emily? What's your take on the skillcation? Are we kind of saying maybe we don't need to relax and we can instead go and learn how to, become a long distance endurance runner in a week?
I think this is a growing trend. If you think about, how do properties themselves differentiate? And they're all beautiful. I mean, particularly in luxury. I mean, you're dealing with one beautiful place after another. So it comes down to, again, why, the purpose, and then also how can you engage people that want to be engaged. People find themselves, brain rot. That's another term of
Yes.
this year. So they don't want to be brain rotting on their phones. And we're actually seeing, and this was discussed at ILTM, digital detox as a rising trend. And wellness, of course, is huge. Booking.com and their predictions, they said glowcation. So this is hyper personalized wellness. So not necessarily skill based there, but tied in, and
Mhm.
Skyscanner had the hushed hobbies, so that's foraging, fishing. They even noted moth watching, which we can discuss. Smart Flyer.
Moth watching. We'll put a pin in that and come back to moth watching.
Smart Flyer, they were predicting tennis and golf as the new power sports. So skills and travel, wellness, it all kinds of ties in, ceramics in Kyoto, knife forging in Sakai, surf camps, sommelier courses. I mean, the list goes on, but it's the thing that unites it is very you focused. It's focused on you, what you want to learn. And I, for one, am super into paddle, and so is my husband. So I would be up for doing a paddle holiday.
So, okay, let me take a little sidebar on this, Emily. Paddle, you live in London. Tell me
It's big.
the difference between paddle and pickleball. Because there is a difference, right?
There is a definite
Okay,
difference. So
okay.
paddle is kind of like if squash and tennis had a baby, and it's a sport that has a paddle, so it's not as big or as long as a tennis racket, but it does use a ball that looks like a tennis ball, and there are walls, so that's where it is similar to squash.
Okay.
Whereas pickleball also uses a paddle. It's a lighter paddle and it's more square shaped. And it uses a ball that looks like a wiffle ball and it doesn't have any walls. So it's just a smaller court. But both of them are on a smaller court, smaller to tennis. And they're more approachable, I think, than let's say tennis. And also
Sure.
in the case of paddle, it's always played as doubles. So it's very social. And I love it. I've made a lot of friends that way, and it is a workout, and it's good for your, eye-hand coordination and cognitive and stuff like that.
So
So
I'm seeing these trends pop up, right? Social as opposed to solo, connecting with people, doing whether it's a new skill or just going to practice the skill or the hobby that you love because you don't want to. And again, like if you're going to pay, I don't care how much of a high net worth individual you are, if you're going to pay for a week at a really nice place and your whole family's sitting there with their nose in their phone, no, right?
yeah,
You might as
exactly.
well make the most of it. So you would go on a paddle vacation. Are
I
you
would 100% go on a
planning
paddle
one? What do you
vacation.
think? When we talk again next year at this time, will you be telling us stories of your paddle holiday?
Yes. I mean, I hope so. And I also think you bring up a good point. I think travel today is coming back with stories. People want to be able to talk about whatever they've done. If it's something super over the top, then maybe that's the flex. But I think it's about what did I learn? What did I do that's different and takes me out of my day to day grind?
And that is the storytelling part, right? Connecting with friends. It's not so much just anymore posting that picture on Instagram. All
No,
right.
I think it's about the connections that you make. And also, I think it is, and we're seeing this, and I should have looked up this data, but travel is a huge way to meet other people. And and I think people are missing that. Like the phone thing, it really is making people more withdrawn, and travel is an antidote to that.
It's a connector. You know, you're in a
It is.
place, somebody else is in a place. Look, you already have something in common. It's as simple as that. All right, good. I love it. I'm going to think about the skillcation that I want to take. And now we are on to trend number 4. Now, Emily, I have a buzzword for you on this one that I think is a trend, but I have a feeling that you are going to convince me otherwise, and I am absolutely going to open my mind to it. So, my buzzword is girl dinner, which, for the benefit of our listeners who may not know what this is, the concept of girl dinner started on TikTok because, of course, it's essentially a snack plate as a meal replacement, right? I know, dumb phrase for something that's been around forever, like bleisure, dare I say, is a dumb word for something that's been around forever. But the trend of girl dinner has essentially evolved into a menu trifecta. And it's a martini, truffle fries, and a Caesar salad. And I see this now popping up on hotel bar menus all over the place. So I think it's turned into a real hotel F&B trend. Listeners, I can see that Emily has an opinion on this one, and she is about to let me know. What do you think about girl dinner, Emily?
Stephanie, I say this is not a trend. This is a menu meme, and the
You
gloves are
mean?
coming off. I will say this. On the one hand, we are seeing the impact, particularly again in the luxury segment, of people being on GLP-1. So, the
Yes.
Ozempics and their ilk, and people are eating less and they're also drinking less. So 8 to 10%,
True.
this is the most recent data I could find, that 8 to 10% of Americans are now taking GLP-1s, and another third have expressed interest in taking them. So that was according to PricewaterhouseCoopers, but I think that data is actually a year old. So girl
Mm.
dinner could be a result of that. However, I still think food is an opportunity for cultural credibility. It's a way to connect with the destination. So I say less girl dinner, more authentic cuisine, smaller, more refined meals. Are we going to fight about it?
You know, I think you've convinced me because I like the term cultural credibility way more than I like girl dinner, which to me sounds like girl boss, and I don't like anything about that one. So, okay, you win. I'm going to go with you, but I'm going to offer a twist on how I can still get my girl dinner and be culturally connected with a destination. So here's my suggestion. Instead of the generic martini, Caesar and truffle fries, how about the hotel bar offers me something regionally inspired, right? Here in Cleveland, make that dirty martini with some stadium mustard in it, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot, and, I definitely think the whole small plates and the idea of indulgence in a small way that also has a local connectivity is great.
And I think the stats you mentioned about the GLP-1 use are something that no industry can ignore, whether you agree with it or not. And I remember having a conversation with some colleagues a couple years ago, like 2 years ago, about this having an impact on hotel F&B. And at the time we laughed. But when you see numbers like that growing and you think like with any behavioral or cultural trend, our industry does need to be flexible to keep up with that. So seeing how that will change, I think, is definitely a trend to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I can't remember the exact number, but I just saw some Amex stats, and it's in the billions what people are still spending on dining out, and it grew
Hmm.
this much I do know, it grew 8% in the first quarter of 2025. So people definitely still wanna go out. I mean, I think it does relate again back to this, the social nature of dining and people wanting to make connections in the real world instead of just sitting on their phone at home.
Hmm.
So I think that even though people may be eating less, they're still eating out. They want to eat out more, and that's a great. I mean, I think let's put a pin in that and see where we are
Right.
next year.
See how the industry flexes around that. Okay, fun. So our next trend is one that I think we will both agree on. So where there's food and beverage, there's also books. This is a trend described with a buzzword that I love. Readaways. Now, these were first mentioned I believe in the Expedia Unpacked 26 trend report, but I've seen it other places as well. And it essentially describes getaways that let travelers lean into their love of reading. So we've talked a lot about social connections and doing things with friends and family. Reading, though, you do by yourself. So we have our aspect of solo travel here. Now, we've noticed many hotels offering promotional packages around this, sort of touting their in-house libraries or hosting social events. Well, there's the social element of it, designed around literary themes like come this evening and we'll have tea flights and bring a book. I love it. What do you think about it, Emily?
Yeah, I think we saw this one noted across several of the reports. I think it's a real trend and that hotels are leaning into it. Will it last? I'm not so sure, but it has given us the buzzword shelfie tourism, and I'm grateful for that.
Is that my picture in front of a bookshelf or like my face behind the book that I'm reading? Like, what is it?
I think it's your picture beside a shelf of books.
So that people can judge what's on my bookshelf like we all did during COVID when everyone did their videos. And
Yes, just another way to judge people, right?
just another way. You know what? There's always some element of that. And I I think this is fun. We all bring a book when we travel, and I think it's accessible. It's a good way to experience a hotel that maybe you couldn't stay in. I could think of a lot of hotels that I'd love to curl up with a book in. And yeah, I'm going to order a pot of tea or a cocktail while I am reading in your library and taking shelfies.
I mean, is that also back we could tie it back to the Herkel-Durkel, the idea that people wanna do
Yes.
something cozy, they want comfort, and sometimes that comfort comes in solitude, and also it does reflect back to the idea of the digital detox, so I feel like it does wrap into a couple things, so it could be that next year we're still talking about this.
Absolutely. The cozy thing that definitely definitely could be the umbrella trend over this one. Oh, this is so much fun. And here we are onto our final trend. Now, you'll notice that we did 6 for 2026. We're going to have to come up with more next year. This one is another trend also that I describe by a buzzword, which we might argue about. And that buzzword is ultra luxury. And I can hear you all and you, Emily, saying, Steph, ultra luxury isn't a buzzword. But technically speaking, it is, because it is not an officially defined STR hotel class. We all tend to cast ultra luxury as hotels that, command ADRs of equivalent of $1,000 or so per night, just really the top of the top. And we have a lot of CoStar data and analysis on this, and I'll link it in the show notes. But Emily, I am excited to hear your take on the trends in this particular, I don't want to call it a sub-segment because sub sounds lower, but like a cream of the crop segment, because you do the luxury circuit. This is not going anywhere, even despite all of the economic noise.
It's not going anywhere. Not only that, it's growing. First of all, I just want to say I've learned something here. I didn't know that STR doesn't have ultra luxury as a defined hotel class.
No, luxury is technically the
surprised by
top.
that. Okay.
And so the analysis that STR and CoStar analysts do is they'll pull certain subsegments of that. Like I mentioned, ADR $1,000 a night or equivalent, or, the number of hotels in a market that are, getting that ADR lift above all of their luxury counterparts in a meaningful way. But it's not a technically defined class.
Okay, well, we'll see. I mean, we may be making a prediction here where they
Right.
may lean into that and it becomes one. It might happen. I don't know. I will say this. Visa gave a presentation in the opening session of ILTM, and the mass market travel is flat, under 1% growth, while affluent and high net worth card spending is surging. That was 7% and 15% respectively. And there seems to be, and I might hit you with an oxymoron here, a limitless ceiling for ADR. So Virtuoso, which of course is the big luxury aggregator, said that their ADR was over $2,000 a night this year for 2025.
Wow. Across the Virtuoso platform?
Across their travel advisors, which is a global network. And then Internova, which has over 100,000 travel advisors in 80 countries, theirs was 1,800 a night. The other thing I would note about this for your hotelier listeners is that the booking window has collapsed. So Internova reported that 53% of luxury bookings now happen within 30 days. So these are like high net worth travelers who just don't want to plan ahead. It's like, I want to go on a fabulous trip and I want to go next weekend. Okay. They even shared a story of someone booking a $1.9 million destination wedding in Italy inside of 40 days. So I have to say that whole thing kind of blew my mind. And it just goes to show you that what we have is this sort of, there's growth and an expansion at this upper end of the market. And it kind of mirrors, I guess, what's happening in the economy, unfortunately. You have fewer people with more.
Right. And the term that we use for that a lot is bifurcation. Right? The separation of one end of the spectrum from the other. And I think it's interesting that you talk about that booking window, because one of the interesting pieces of analysis that CoStar has done on those super high ADR commanding hotels is that occupancy is, not at the level that it's not 80+% occupancy at these hotels. And that seems to be okay because these travelers, like you mentioned, want what they want when they want it. And so it seems like they're able to fulfill that in destinations that would have lower occupancy because, of course, there's fewer fewer travelers in that bracket who are doing it. So they're really kind of getting the best of both worlds, these high net worth individual travelers.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is it's very interesting, and you do wonder at some point, like, do people say, "Yeah, I don't wanna pay that much for this?" Like, what are you getting? And I will say
Hmm.
one hotelier told me sort of off the record is like, yes, the rates are really high, but it also doesn't know what else they're throwing in. So at the end of the
Mm,
day, they may be throwing in meals or experiences that we've talked about, these kind of ways that
yes.
make the experience more, and they charge for it. They charge more for it, but they bundle it in with the room rate.
Mhm.
So there might be a bit of that we're seeing, and I don't know if, again, in the next year we see that level off or if we finally do hit a ceiling.
Right. It's been a couple years now that
Mhm.
I would have anticipated we would see that level off. And there's data kind of fluctuates here and there to say, oh, maybe a little less. But at the end of the day, that kind of travel is still happening in earnest. And it's really pushing the bar for a lot of things, almost a tierification, right? We see in all the major airline carriers that business class sells out first and at the highest rates. That's talk about a constrained supply. So there's a lot of demand for it. And I think you see what that spurs trickle down across the hotel industry, which we will absolutely keep an eye on. I think we landed on a fun, solid 6 trends. So keep your eye on them. And Emily, before we go, and even before I ask you to choose your favorite buzzword for next year, so I'm going to give you a second to think about it, I want to let our listeners know that you can and should send us the wild buzzwords and trends you come across throughout the year. Find us on LinkedIn. We'll put those links in the show notes and send us ideas. Many of you do this already. I think we're building a reputation for this. So keep them coming. Now, Emily, what is your favorite? Give us the buzzword of that the one you love most or maybe you hate most. I think last year I chose one that I didn't like. Give us the trend you love most for next year and why.
All right, Stephanie. I'm here for farm charm. We didn't mention it in the big 6 trends, but VRBO and Skyscan are both named it for 2026, and for me, this ties into some of the trends we've spoken about, digital detox and wellness, with nature immersion as the novelty, so things like harvesting, foraging, gardening, animal caretaking. I just think people are tired of hearing about tech, they're tired of AI, and they want to reset in nature.
Love this so much. We did not mention AI once in any
That's why
of
I
these
mentioned you
trends.
now.
I'm so excited. I think we might need to book our Fra League skillcation at a farm. Emily, what do you think?
There's a lot of nice
Forage?
ones here in England that we can go to.
Yes, like a country house, and we could, forage and
Yeah,
garden and tend to the sheep and then cook lovely stews. Oh, I am all for it.
yeah, let's do
Invite me
it.
on your farm charm skillcation and I will come.
All
Think
right, let's do it.
I think, yeah, the place there that I wanna go in your neck of the woods is the Ballymaloo Cookery School in Ireland.
Yeah,
That would be
I've
my
always wanted to go there.
skillcation.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm gonna look into that.
All right, that's it. Book it. You're in charge. So I think the buzzy trend that I like is another one that we didn't mention today because I think it's a little too niche right now, but it's this idea of the mystery vacation. This is where you work with a travel planner, a very specific travel planner. Can't do this one as a solo trip without working with a travel planner to set up exactly that. It's a mystery vacation that you, maybe by yourself, whomever you're traveling with, you don't get the details until it's go time, which I think requires a lot of logistics and a lot of trust, but it sounds pretty intriguing. I mean, I think you could say, I want a beach or I want, a polar vortex so you know what to pack, but mystery vacation.
I like that a lot, and actually, I just spent the weekend with travel leaders, travel advisors after ILTM with Hyatt, and they talk a lot about really knowing their clients And again, I think this is sort of the anti-AI trend, is that the rise of the luxury travel
Yes.
advisor is a real thing. People who have money, they don't have time, or they don't have time to be researching everything. So they really do rely on their travel advisors. And this has become an amazing partnership. And in speaking to one in particular, Anne Scully, who's been in the business, I want to say close to 40 years. She's an incredible lady. She's a partner at Embark Beyond, which is one of these high-end
Mm.
luxury travel agencies. And she talked to me a lot about all the questions that she asks her clients and how she gets to know them. And I think that actually they would trust her. And I think that if you know the person who's planning it and they've already really asked you a lot of questions, then this could be a great thing. And the surprise element just adds that extra layer of fun. So I love that. And I think that's a great one.
Yeah, and that reminder that people are at the heart of what can make these experiences work is a really valuable one, because I'm just imagining myself asking ChatGPT, book me a ticket,
Yeah.
and I would go on the ultimate hallucination vacation around the world, and it would be purely an AI hallucination. No, thank you. So we're coming back to those overall themes of coming back together, finding joy and authenticity in what we're doing at whatever level, and maybe putting the phones down for a little bit. So
Yeah. And putting the
I
trust
like
in
it.
people and not computers. I think that is a trend that we're gonna see grow
Mm,
this year and next year, is that there will be ways that AI can automate some of the back end work. But at the end of the day, I think particularly in luxury travel, it comes down to relationships and people who really know what's available and out there. So
mhm.
they've gone to see it themselves, or they're in a network of travel advisors where they have colleagues who are going to see the properties, tour them, and really know what's available for people. So I think I'm excited to see what 2026 brings, and I'm excited to have this chat again at the end of 2026 to see what we
I
got
love it.
right.
I have a good feeling about this one. So, Emily, remind our listeners where they can find you and find Hertelier content online.
Sure. Thanks again for having me. And I reiterate that this conversation is one of my favorites of the year. So, to your listeners, I say please sign up for the Hertelier free Sunday newsletter. We call it the Roundup, and we round up what's happening in travel trends, interesting news impacting women in hospitality. You can find us on Hertelier, HERTELIER.com, and definitely on LinkedIn. We're very active on LinkedIn. So thank you again, Stephanie.
Thank you, Emily. And as always, thank you to our listeners. Subscribe to this and all CoStar News Hotels podcasts on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you like to listen. Visit CoStar.com/hotel news to sign up for our free daily newsletter and to get all the global hotel industry news you need. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.
Hello, I'm Luke Haynes, People Newsletter Editor CoStar News, and the host of Top Credentials, a monthly podcast exploring the colourful careers of those working at the top of UK commercial real estate. In the episodes, we discover the valuable lessons influencing the daily decision-making of property sector leaders, and hear about the aspects of their job that make it a little easier to get out of bed each morning. We'll also ask for their views on the latest news and policies shaping our constantly evolving industry, and even get them to share a famous quote or song title they think defines their career or the profession. Listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This episode of the CoStar News Hotels podcast was recorded on December 10, 2025, and was produced and edited by Sean McCracken. Find all hotel industry news at CoStar.com/hotel news. Thanks for listening.